Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now, you guys seem to quite like the video I did on manipulation a little while ago, and then the follow-up that I did to that in regards to the video on gaslighting last week. Apparently you guys found that really useful, and there was a suggestion in the comments, so thank you very much for suggesting, but there was a suggestion in the comments in regards to a follow-up where if you can't get away from the person and you have to kind of be dealing with that individual directly, and kind of not just resisting it, not just avoiding falling victim to their bits and pieces, to their manipulations and their tactics, then what can you do to deal with those people? And it was Holly who suggested that, so thank you very much for the suggestion, Holly. It makes my life easier when someone suggests a video for me to cover. But as a result, I've got 11 things that I've got jotted down on my little piece of paper here that I have done, or that I've seen work, or that just generally can be kind of useful when actually having to tackle one of these individuals, either head on or even just deal with them tangentially in a way that you can't avoid. And the first thing that I'll say is that lots of these things on here are broad. Lots of them are going to be quite specific to you, so I can't be super specific in regards to what you need to do to let you do these things. But also, some of the things on here are going to be difficult to do. As with anything though, nothing worth doing was ever easy. And so when I say that they're not going to be necessarily the easiest things to do, I mean that they require practice, or they require an element of confidence, or they require a little bit of examination of your situation, which if you're not used to doing, might take you a little longer to do. And just to make sure that you're prepared and ready to engage with the person who may be attempting to manipulate you, might be gaslighting you, and so on and so forth. Now, the gaslighting thing is obviously the issue that is freshest in my mind from doing the video last week, so I'm probably going to frame a lot of these around the gaslighting issue at either work or in kind of romantic personal relationships. And so as we go through, I'll make reference to it, but just keep all of those things that I just said in mind. It might not necessarily be easy. It might require things like practice or confidence or observational skills, and on top of that, I'm framing this in terms of either work or in terms of relationship issues. So let's get into it. The first thing that people hate anyway, because I also mentioned this in my unintentionally intimidating video that I did a little while ago, is be direct. If you are being direct, if you are always cutting to the quick, if you are always dealing with people in not necessarily a completely tactless fashion, but in a fairly straightforward and blunt one, then there's no wiggle room for word games, there's no wiggle room for messing things around. There's no way that they can kind of try and manipulate you or try and break you down, because you're not giving the time to them to do it. So if someone starts coming to you, for instance, at work, and starts trying to confuse you, starts trying to wind you back and forwards one way or the other about a certain thing, beating you down with all of these insults, and then throwing in an odd comment here and there that's more complimentary just to keep you off balance, don't give them the opportunity. Go, okay, let me stop you there. So what you're asking is this, what the answer you want is this, the answer that I'm going to give you is this, is there anything else we need to talk about? Break it down, cut to the solid things. Again, look for facts, because if you've got facts, if you've got the things that are right there, they can't fight that. So being direct, being to the point, not allowing the more nebulous language or the tangents to occur so much, that's going to be beneficial to you, because you're not going to be able to fall into someone's traps if you've literally just drawn a straight line from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation with a couple of signposts along the way for the specific things you need to talk about. When they try and divert you or try and drag you off in a different direction, if you're like, no, I'm going on this path because that's the path the conversation needs to take for me to do my job, you to do your job and move on, they're not going to be able to do anything other than that. You've already laid it all out for yourself. In regards to a relationship, the relationships are more difficult to be direct in, because being direct about things like emotions is tough, because our emotion center in the brain doesn't really connect with our language center, which is why when you ask someone why they love their partner, they start rationalizing. They can't really verbalize what the feeling is and how it makes a difference to them and how it really impacts them. And so as a result, it's a case of being direct there can be more difficult, can be more taxing, but at the same time, if your partner is trying to manipulate you, and sometimes they will do it unintentionally, which is something that I'll touch on later, then what it comes down to is, if you're direct, if you get blunt with it, they're complaining at you about certain things, and so your direct response would be, then what do you want me to do about it? And then they can either give you a solution, or they can complain more. If they can complain more and just continue to try and beat you down and all the rest of it, then you know that they're not actually going to be happy whether you succeed in correcting an issue, or if there is even an issue in the first place and they were just looking for you to use you as a punch bag for a bit. Then there's that. But otherwise, if they can give you some constructive criticism, you can ask more questions, you can get more into it, and you can be direct about each one of those things until a solution is found. Again, can be difficult to stand up to a partner that you care about very much in that way, by just going, no, we're not talking about all of the daft stuff around the edges here, we're talking about these specific things that you've raised or that you need to raise to gain some kind of clarity. The next thing is keeping a level head, and this is important. The number 2 point of just keeping yourself calm, keeping yourself composed, collected, not getting angry, because that's the thing that they're looking for. They're looking for you to start thinking with your emotions, and emotions don't think. They don't form ideas. They can inform ideas, but they do not work. Ideas do not work in the nebulous realm that is emotion. So keeping a level head is incredibly important. When they try and goad you into an attack, when they try and goad you and wind you up into a frenzy, into being angry, into being upset, into crying, into whatever, into taking a swing at them even, with all of those things that they are trying to do, don't let it happen. You know that your brain is not going to work well and be able to argue your case or work on a solution for the two of you if you're angry, if you're upset, if it's flooded with emotion and just noise happening up here, then you're not going to get anywhere with finding a solution. How to keep a level head, though? Obviously, before I've said you're the person who controls your emotions. More so, no one else can do that. There is no such thing as psychic power. And the power of suggestion only goes so far. Obviously, its limits vary on different people, but you have the control over your own body. You are the person that can affect you more than anyone else. And so, as a result, firstly, big realization there, you won't get angry if you don't want to get angry. If you don't let someone make you angry, the choice is always yours. Beyond that, though, as I said in regards to being direct, the way to keep a level head: evidence. If there's evidence for it, it's something to be concerned about, it's something to expend energy on, including emotional responses, because you have to use energy to provide an emotional response. If it's not got any evidence for it, though, or if it has evidence but you can't control that, someone complaining about the sky being blue, or that a company policy is the way that it is, or that you happen to be a man with a certain colour of skin tone or something. All of these various daft things are things that are factual, but there's nothing that you can do about them individually. And so as a result, is it worth wasting energy on? No, not at all. Only expend energy. Be lazy. And by that I don't mean take no action at all, but only take action on the things that are informed by evidence that you can rely on. In which case, if someone starts spouting a whole load of subjective nonsense at you that's very obviously there just to wind you up, get you angry, get you upset, Well, fine, but it's all subjective. That's their position versus your position. Be annoyingly agreeable. And I don't mean agreeable in terms of appeasing, bending over backwards, but just go for the middle ground all the time when it's a subjective matter. Your opinion, my opinion. If it's over subjective things that you're arguing about, again, what are your reasons for it? Are they backed up by evidence? Are they supported by other things? Have you got evidence of your beliefs working particularly well in the real world and allowing you to move forward? If so, how then does that apply to this situation? Can it be argued? Can it be worked with? Is there a lot of transferable elements between the two situations that you're kind of putting together here? Or otherwise, that evidence and keeping that in your the center of your view is so important to just keeping a level head. If you can't see the horizon, then you lose track of where the ground is and which way you're going. It's one of the problems that the astronauts have in space, where they're not realizing which way round they are because they don't have a horizon to pay attention to. And so as a result, it can be very disorienting. Keep that horizon in view, that horizon in this case being the evidence before you, because that way you can't be put off balance, you can't be thrown off kilter just because you know which way is up and which way is down. The third thing, and this is an important thing, and this is a learning and practice thing, learn to say no and don't feel bad about it. A lot of times when we say no, we feel bad because that person was going to potentially be indebted to us, and we've shrugged them off. We have let down the collective. Our tribal instincts, our tribal minds have all turned around and gone, we should have helped them because they're one of us. And all we've done is shun them. All we've done is tell them to go away. We shouldn't have done that because that's not a good survival strategy. Issue. People will take advantage of this. Fairly obviously. Gaslighting, especially because that's usually the kind of manipulation that occurs when people are very, very close to you and know you. They're going to take advantage of that, either in terms of giving or in terms of access or acceptance or any of those things. Learn to say no and learn to not feel bad about it. If I say no because someone has come and asked me for money, for instance, if someone has come to me and said, I'm in trouble, I need money, I don't have any money at the moment either. YouTube has just demonetized my entire channel, not that I was earning any money from it anyway, but I was this close to starting to earn some money from it. Thank you very much to you guys for watching as a result, by the way. But otherwise, all my money is wrapped up in kind of keeping me alive or trying to continue to develop my business and the things that I want to do to develop opportunities. So if someone comes to me and goes, lend me some money because I'm in trouble, and then the answer has to be no. Will I feel bad about it? Also no. Everyone's having a hard time right now. Everyone's having difficulties. Everyone's trying to do things with their monies to improve their lives in some way. Either be it a small way, be it a big way, be it whatever. So if you're running out, if you've got yourself into trouble, there are always safety nets, be it family, be it loans, which, granted are probably not the best option, but be it a rearranging of your budget. The number of people, by the way, that I have sat down with, and whilst I'm not a financial advisor or something like that, the number of people, especially my age and younger, who do not pay attention to the amount of money that is coming and going from them at all. They will go and make sure that they have been paid, and then after they have been paid, they don't pay attention to where the money is coming from and where the money is going. That's it. Did the money turn up? Yes. Cool. Now I can just splash out. Oh, I've run out of money again. Yeah, you are, because there's no awareness of the situation. And so when it comes to those people then going, oh, I'm in trouble, I need money, fair enough, you're in trouble, you need money. That doesn't mean that you instantly should say yes to bailing that person out. You can rationalize it any which way you want, be it that You've got your own needs, and your own needs come first. You know, my thinking of if I'm not able to look after myself, then I can't look after anyone else. If I'm not able to develop things and work to improve things for myself, be it through business, be it just in terms of money and other things like that as well, then I'm not going to be able to continue to provide these videos for you guys. I'm not going to be able to provide services to my clients. I'm not going to be able to look forward to possibly creating a family at some point in the future, or do any of those other things. I'm going to be stuck. And as a result, you know, if someone is going to ask me for something like that, then I don't feel bad about it. But what about things that are more nebulous and more emotional and more on the other side of things that are tougher? You know, it can be difficult to say no to someone that you don't want to say no to, who you care about very much, who you love very much, who is incredibly important to you and knows you better than anyone. It can be very, very difficult to say no. I have seen more than enough people completely incapable of saying no to their other half, who have then ended up worse off for it. They have had trouble, they have had misery, they have had strife, and they are incapable of saying no unless it is the absolute breaking point. And that's just not healthy, because that suggests that there are no boundaries. You know, if there are no boundaries, then we've talked about boundaries before. You know, if there are no boundaries, then someone is always going to be losing out. Someone is going to be losing their individualism, their individuality, their identity to the will of someone else. And that's how manipulation works. You become a pawn for someone else. So learning to say no and not feel bad about it, be it to enforce boundaries, be it to speak your mind, be it to actually just say that you're actually not capable of doing a thing. All of those things are incredibly important to learn and develop as skills. The next thing is stick up for yourself. Now, this is, again, kind of confidence based, and sticking up for yourself can be difficult. But when someone, I don't know, starts bashing on you, because as I said, in regards to gaslighting, one of the first things that they are likely to do is start beating you down, undermining you, suggesting that you're crap, spreading rumours about you, or telling you that other people feel a certain way or think a certain way about you. Excuse me. And so as a result, with those kind of things, stick up for yourself. When they start undermining you, go, well, hold on, no, I'm not like that. And this is why I'm not like that. Again, evidence. What evidence do they have to suggest that you are the way that they are suggesting you are? What evidence do they have to suggest that these people are actually talking about you in the way that they say they are talking about you? You know, if they don't have evidence for it, if you don't have evidence for what they're saying, but you have a whole load of evidence to the contrary, then present it. You know, oh, well, you're X, Y, and Z. Oh, well, actually, I think I'm A, B, and C. And, you know, from when I was doing this, A, B, and C sounds about right. X, Y, and Z is something that I've never been. You know, you don't have to be some unshakable titan to stand up for yourself and just know who and what you are based on the facts of your life and the experiences that you've had. Again, stick to the facts. This time, the facts about you, which I know a lot of, you know, I've sat down and talked with people, especially around things like dating profiles and work letters and work profiles and things like that, where you've got to talk about yourself or describe yourself, and people hate it. Why? Because it means that you need to actually take a look at you. I mean, in my case, I even hate doing them, and I look at myself in terms of introspection and analysis of my own kind of ins and outs an awful lot. And even I hate those kind of personal profile things, because it's like, well, I could tell you anything, but either there are only certain things that you're going to be looking for, and if they're not there, or I've worded them in a slightly different way, then you're not going to care. But also on top of it, the stuff that I went for a job interview at one point, the regional manager that interviewed me for the job that I was going for started asking me questions about my personal life and about things outside of work that really had no bearing on me doing the job that I was applying for. And as a result, I drew my line in the sand. I said, no, none of these have any bearing on what I can offer to your company and your business. Can we stay on track? I didn't get the job because he didn't like me. Okay, fair enough. Sorry for being professional, unlike him. But it gave me not just the kind of moral high ground coming out of it, but also it was a case of, well, no, I shouldn't be allowing kind of someone who's completely disconnected, unrelated to the other situations that I'm involved in. He shouldn't be interfering or be able to pry into my personal life beyond a certain point. That's the whole point. This is why my personal Facebook page, I'll like some things, I'll share some things, I'll share my own videos more than anything else, to be fair. But beyond that, if something matters to me, something not annoys me that's huge, something special has happened, whatever else, then maybe I'll share something about it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever. Otherwise, I don't. Why? Because there are a lot of people who don't need to know, don't need to see. It's not interesting to them. And even if it is interesting to them, they've got no place knowing. It's again, drawing those boundaries and sticking up for yourself is more about making sure that those boundaries are maintained rather than and making sure that they're maintained in lines with the facts that you've already laid down to create those boundaries in the first place, rather than just being like, yes, I'm awesome and you can't fuck with me. The next one, number 5, and this can be tough as well. This is a definite tough one because this is one of the reasons why people come to coaches more so than an awful lot of other reasons. And this is, do what's best for you. Now, if you've obviously got a situation where, as said, with money, someone's asking you for money, you've said no, well, that's obviously the best situation for you because there's a good chance you don't have that money to lend, you don't have things to back yourself up with if you did lend that money, and so on and so forth. And it's not your problem. It's their problem. They've come to you, asked you, you've given them a response, and then that's the end of it. They've still got other options that they can chase, and that's entirely on them because it's their problem and their situation to deal with. But as a result, doing what's best for you, again, most important thing. Why? Because even in the nebulous situations where it's all emotions based and it's all upset and anger and love and all those kind of things flying around, if you can't look after yourself, if you can't keep yourself in a good place, then you are in no way going to be able to help that other person do the same thing. I'm reminded, whenever I think of this kind of thing, where it's do best for you and make sure that you're all right before you help other people, before you engage with other people in a way that would be beneficial to everybody, I always go back to, Hannah and I went to her grandmother's farm at one point, and Hannah squashed her thumb in a gate. She was in a lot of pain, she was very upset, the shock of it really, kind of made it seem so much worse than it was to her, and all the rest of it. She was in a lot of pain and she was upset about it, rather unsurprisingly, because this gate, this big heavy metal gate, had just swung closed on her thumb. In which case, did I coddle her? Did I do anything else? No, because if as I was already in a good position, I didn't need to. I was able to make sure that I was okay, she was, and I was unaffected by it emotionally, even though seeing her in pain was distressing. If I can make the choice to not let that affect me until I've made sure to see if her thumb is broken, to see what the bruising is like, to make sure that she can actually still move her hand, to make sure that she didn't actually get hurt somewhere else that I didn't see. Making sure that all of those things are done because I have been in a good enough position to make one decision. That's the important thing. So do what's best for you first. In my case, in that particular situation, and regardless of the fact that it was a distressing and upsetting situation in the moment, it was a case of, I have a choice to make. Do I get worried about her, distressed about her in a way that would probably only make her feel worse and worry more? Or do I stay calm? Do I stay collected? Do I get her back on the right track? And do I make sure that she's not actually kind of severely and permanently damaged? It all comes down to just making sure that you know your position and do the right thing for your position before you address anybody else's. Because again, you can't control other people. You can only ever control yourself, and they can't control you. Only they can control themselves. You can interact, but that interaction is still very limited. So making sure that your position is solid and that then you can address theirs is so much more important than trying to address theirs first, because then by the time you get to addressing your own, you've already been dragged through all manner of situations and all manner of problems that weren't yours in the first place. Next thing though, this is where we're going to start getting on to kind of engaging with these people, because so far we've still been talking about what you can do to make sure that when you're in this situation, you're able to tackle it. And that's because those things are the more important things, in my view. Making sure that you're on the level, that you're able to address things directly, that you have learned to say no and hold your own ground, and make sure that whatever you're focusing on, it's going to be the best thing for you before anything else. That's far more important overall. But then what happens when you've got this person sat right in front of you and they're trying to manipulate you? There are lots and lots of negatives, followed by the odd compliment here, the odd compliment there. And I'm not talking about a praise sandwich, because lots of managers will use, positive thing first, a lot of negatives, positive thing at the end, as a way of reinforcing what they've said, trying to be constructive. What I'm talking about is negatives all the way through, and then when they feel you're approaching that breaking point where you might snap, you might just walk away, you might just break down and kind of end whatever interaction you're having, they throw in a compliment just to tick you back up a little bit more so that they can throw some more stuff at you. Grind you down by just resetting your position a little, just to make sure that they've got the best edge to grind away at. And so, when it comes to it, call attention to it. When they're doing that to you, be like, why are we getting all of these negatives? I have done this, I have done that, I've done these other things. Yeah, I might not have done perfectly on all of these other things, but I've done passably on all of those other things. What do you want? What do you want from me? Yeah, again, be direct, cut to the quick, and again, what is it that you want from me? Why are you doing this? What is it that's caused all of these sudden insults and all this crap that you're throwing at me? I don't think I deserve any of this. Yeah? It's drawing attention to it, because if they think they're caught, if they think that you suddenly realise that what they're doing, how they're trying to do it, especially for the smarter ones that are doing it deliberately to you, they are actively doing these things to you to mess with you because they can, not spur of the moment stuff, not because that's just the way that they learned how to communicate with people and stuff like that. Again, we'll get onto the unintentional stuff in a little bit, but making sure that you point out to them and go, well, no, hold on, this is what you're doing, right? You're literally just trying to mess with me. Then they go, oh shit, rumbled. And at the very least, in that situation, they may step back. In work, especially considering meetings and things tend to be quite well recorded, it's a case of then going, oh crap, rumbled. And then they might actually have to change their behaviour anyway because of the evidence that is now there as part of a recorded meeting or a recorded interview or something like that, that has quite happily now provided you with a huge amount of evidence to go, right, this is the situation that you were trying to cause, this is the situation that you were trying to raise, and now I've countered it, and we've got evidence of the fact that that is the way that it was dealt with, the way that we decided that we would move forward. So now if you go back on that and you start trying to just insult me and shit all over me again and again and again, to try and break me down some more so that you can get your way, I can always refer back to this and point out that you're doing it again. The seventh thing on our list of 11 is ignoring. And this is something that so many people, especially young people, to be fair, from my experience, but also some of the older, noisier people as well, they just can't ignore people. Yeah? There's this age range kind of between people on the verge of retirement and people that are still in their 20s. There's that kind of age range there that are more used to ignoring people, seemingly, and who are more willing to do it, and as a result sit in that kind of reasonable area. But on the other two ends, they just don't. I don't get it. Why are you wasting energy on paying attention to someone that is upsetting you or that you don't agree with? And obviously, if it's your partner and they're right in your face with their insults and upsets and all that kind of thing, then yeah, there's a good chance that ignoring that isn't an option. But in regards to some douche at work who's doing this thing and who's trying to grind you down, well, great, but he's only going to be able to grind you down if you actually take heed of what he's saying and what he's doing. Like, if you're aware of it and then you can go, right, okay, well, that's filed under complete bullshit I don't have to worry about, then that means that you can just walk it off. You can ignore it. And so you've got people, though, who I've seen going, oh, well, this YouTuber, I've enjoyed his stuff, and he's got quite a sizable following, but he started talking about things that are right-wing. And it's like, well, yeah, he's allowed to do that. Why wouldn't he do that? He's allowed to talk about whatever he wants. That's the whole point of the platform. If you don't like it, unsubscribe, ignore him, whatever. Just pay attention to the videos that you actually care about on his channel and just don't watch the rest. You've got a choice. People at the top, people who have, some of the older individuals who have commented on this channel in regards to some of the things that I've put forward. It's a case of going, well, no, hold on, you didn't need to come and lash out at me. You lashed out at me because of you. It says more about you than it does about me. I can address it, you know, and especially considering that I've tried to make this more of a public forum, as it were, to one degree or another, then yeah, I'll address some things. I'll try and respond in the comments, or if something really stands out, like the suggestion for this video, I'll mention them in a video. But otherwise, if it's crap that's been thrown in my direction, or upsetting things, or people suggesting that I'm you know, a terrible person, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm another, I'm something else, then, you know, the number of people who've at times maybe suggested that I'm right-wing, and it's like, no, I'm by nature left-leaning. By demeanour, by active kind of effort, I remain central. And so, you know, I've got evidence to support my two positions there, my natural inclination and my active kind of rationalization and moving towards the center point so that I have the greatest perspective. But otherwise, there's no evidence to suggest that I'm right-wing at all. There's no evidence to suggest that anything beyond what I say is in fact accurate in regards to my own leanings. And so all of those insults and all those things where just suggesting I'm the other side of the political spectrum from the one I'm on, I mean, it's inaccurate. But people are trying to use it as an insult, and that just doesn't work. Firstly, because it's not a particularly good insult in the first place, and secondly, because I can already consign it to the shit, the complete pile of bullshit that I don't need to worry about pile, and as a result, I can just continue and not let it bother me. So if that's something that is happening at work, where, you know, someone, every time you have a shift swap over, someone's making snide comments, someone's kind of grinding away at you and just trying to get under your skin and just trying to get their way, well, fine, but you shift handover. Rationalize it. You've got to put up with them for half an hour to tell them what needs doing and what you've managed to do, what you haven't managed to do, and then you get to go home and you don't have to worry about them anymore. Great. So why is it worth wasting time over thinking and being upset and getting worked up and beaten down over the things that they're saying and the things that they're doing? Simply put, makes no sense at all. Ignore them. But then, moving on, this is where we start talking about people who are maybe doing it accidentally, or people who don't realise that there are better ways. Because there are some people who are manipulative, and they are nasty, and they are just out to get their own way, and they will literally do anything to anyone to get what they want. Whether that's through straight up manipulation, through the specifics of gaslighting, where they are grinding away at you, getting you to question yourself, planting seeds of doubt, isolating you from other people and all those kind of things that we talked about last week. Um, it some people will do that very, very deliberately, and those people are bastards. They are just plainly not nice to deal with or be around, and usually they know what they're doing, and they're very, at least fairly well versed in what they're doing, and that's why they're doing it. But there are some people who, for instance, if they've experienced emotional blackmail throughout their entire lives by their family, if they have had bosses that were gaslighting them for the longest time, and so that's what they now assume management is. If you've got people who have been through a collection of relationships whereby emotional blackmail, manipulation, sneaking around and spying on each other, and again, gaslighting were the main ways that you can actually interact with the partner that they had at the time, then either because that partner was doing it to them or because it was the only way to get through to that person, then it's a case of maybe not meaning to do it, but just being stuck in the pattern of behavior that goes, right, well, when this person does this thing and when I'm unhappy and this, that, and the other, then that means I need to go and do this in this order. Beat them down over my upsets, rant and rave at them, throw in the odd compliment to kind of keep them on board, and then isolate them, keep them off kilter, because that's the only way I can handle that person because I don't know a better way of doing it. In which case, though, the next thing after the possibility of ignoring them, and again, these don't come in any specific order, they're all just strategies that you can employ, discuss the pattern of behavior that's continuing. Actually sit down with that person and go, okay, so why is it that you keep doing this? Why is it that whenever I come in and we sit down and you told me that we need a meeting, it starts off with half an hour of insults, one compliment, another 10 minutes of insults, and then me leaving in tears? What is it that causes that? Why is it that whenever I come home from work, you have this list of things that you throw at me, and it always involves the same things, including insulting me personally? It's not just stuff I've not been able to do or things that we don't have or whatever else. You are continually beating me up over this stuff, and then I love you very much, but you only give me one or two nice things said, or even neutral things said, after I've come home, and then at the end of the day you run off and just disappear into the night because you apparently can't stand me anymore, and I'm left thinking I'm a piece of shit. Why does this keep happening? Why are we continuing to have these discussions? What is it that you expect to get out of them? And it's a case of, you can have these discussions when people are in good moods. You can have this discussion when it's detached. But also, one thing that's kind of potent is the kind of nip it in the bud kind of mentality. So when someone starts doing it to you, you go, oh, this is the same way that these meetings, that these discussions, that whatever has happened the last 3 or 4 times in a row, that it's always been this type of meeting, always been this type of argument, always been this type of discussion. What is it that you think you're going to achieve by always insulting me, always beating me down, always trying to isolate me and twist me around your little finger? What the hell? Because then, again, kind of like just calling attention to what they're doing, discussing why it's happening, and the kind of ongoing pattern, why it always keeps coming back, always keeps coming up. Potentially then you can go, okay, so it always keeps coming up because I'm the one that's responding to it, and because you expect more from me. Fine, well, if that's the case, then you can expect more from me, and I would do a better job if you actually didn't beat me around the head with insults every 10 minutes. You're upset because we haven't managed to go on holiday for a while, or because we've not managed to afford the things we wanted to afford. Well, whilst I'm working my guts out and you don't think I'm paying you enough attention, and that's why you're coming at me with all these insults and upsets and things like that. Well, fine, I understand, but what do you think you'll achieve by that? If anything, you're just incentivizing me to spend less time with you because you're being really angry at me whenever I turn up. It's those different cycles, those different things that you need to pay attention to, and then raise that to them. Because again, some people, the ones who know that they're doing it, as soon as you start going, well, hold on, what are you trying to achieve? They will try and be nice. They will try and backpedal. They will try and work their way around it. They will try and rationalize it to you. And they will even potentially try and suggest that they do it to everyone, even if you've got evidence to the contrary. Again, part of the gaslighting thing we talked about last week was that they won't own up to things even if evidence is placed right in front of them. So, when it comes to discussing the ongoing pattern, if you point it out to someone that's been doing it for a while, but then they go, do you know what, I just want things to be better, and this is the only way that comes into my head to do it, then there's a good chance that maybe they've been doing it completely unintentionally. Because, as I said, some of the things that are associated with stuff like gaslighting and manipulation, they can happen in just a blowout argument. And they wouldn't be gaslighting in that situation because it was a blowout argument. That's the whole point. It was in the moment. Emotions were high. Everyone was getting upset. It's not long. It's not drawn out. But obviously, to some people, things get drawn out. And especially if you're not on the same page as your other half, as it were, then it's a case, especially other half in the interaction, be it a romantic one or a platonic one. Those people, if they're not on the same page as you, then that's going to cause confusion, upset, and they might be experiencing things very, very differently from you. And so as a result, they're going to kind of continue to roll these things out, because to them it's not just a single big blowout argument. It's this single big blowout argument as a kind of era, as a period, where to you it may very well have been that first argument, bang, bang, done, sorted. And then it comes up again and again and again, and it's just because they haven't resolved it for themselves. Even if it was resolved formally or resolved like actively in front of both of you so that there's evidence for it, they might not be aware of it, they might not feel it's enough, but they don't know how to then approach that with you to try and kind of solve the problem or grow it out into something else. The next one is agree limits that need to be kind of adhered to, again with evidence, because this is what I was talking about a second ago in regards to creating evidence as part of a meeting, which then has kind of this very straightforward, well, we resolved it in that meeting, and so here's the evidence of it, and I can refer back to that every time you start getting shitty again. When it comes to relationships, you don't usually have someone recording the meeting, either taking notes or otherwise, but actually, having resolutions that, especially when it's something really big and important, having resolutions that you can refer back to, writing things down, that can be really, really helpful. Having somewhere that the two of you can refer back to. If you don't want paper kicking around, do it on a Google Drive or something. If you don't mind having a calendar up or something like that you can both refer to, add some additional notes to it, including what you agree to do when people are doing it. A calendar, by the way, and keeping each other informed of what you're doing. The number of times that I've seen that solve a situation between couples and things, just because they're on the same page, they know when they're going to be accessible, when they're going to be around. They might get upset when stuff is sprung on them, but if they know most of it, then it's a case of, and as long as they're both willing to refer back to it and pay attention to it, they're on the same page. The arguments, the gaslighting, the manipulation to try and get their way doesn't happen so much. So again, those actually setting limits that are not just limits for yourself, not just boundaries for yourself, as we were talking about earlier, but also make sure that between the two of you, if you're coming to a resolution, if you need to work past it and you can't just ignore it and all that kind of thing, you need to deal with this person, or if you want to deal with this person, because obviously in a relationship there's always the option of leaving, which again we'll get onto in a minute. But in regards to that, always make sure that you've got those limits agreed and defined between the two of you. So we're on to the last couple now, guys. So here you go. The next one that I want to talk about is, we've talked about them isolating you, especially in regards to gaslighting, when they'll tell you lies about what your friends have said, and they'll tell your friends lies about what you've said. As I said in my video last week, we've Hannah and I have lost friends over this, because just someone decided to get in the way because they wanted something. And then they projected as well, which was the thing that they tend to do, where they suggest that what they want is what other people want. Your friends only want you because you've got money, but I don't want that. Your friends don't give a shit if you've got money. They probably just want you around because you're a good friend. That person suggesting that is probably the person who wants more of your resources. So the thing, though, is when you've got those individuals who are manipulating you, who are gaslighting you, who are dealing with you in this way, they always draw their power from somewhere. Be it that they are very well connected with your group of mutual friends, be it in the case of work that they are a rank above you or have a different level of responsibility to you that allows them to try and throw their weight around. In which case, though, for the work situation, go to their boss. Have that conversation with their boss. Go and ask them why this guy is doing this, if there's any real remit for it, if it's actually if the things that they're saying that their boss has said, is that what they actually said? Can his boss confirm that to you, please? Because he seems to be going about it in a very aggressive way, or something like that. If it's in a relationship, then, where they're using your group of mutual friends against you, or they're trying to crowdsource opinions to then try and beat you down with them. Simple. Don't let them. Go and talk to those friends directly, or point out that you don't give two shits about those friends, because those friends have no real impact on your lives, and as a result they lose that kind of center for their power over you. They have to have their own solid base from which to attack yours. Yeah, to chip away at the foundations that you've got underneath you that keep you stable. They need to have their own stable base that they can draw kind of power from, that they can mount their artillery on to fire at you. And so if you start taking that away, which is usually easier to do for you to take away from them because they're the ones that are being aggressive, you can see where the attacks are coming from. You can see the root of them. And so as a result, address the root. Don't worry about the cause. You're a doctor. The symptoms, they're important to deal with, but they're not the most important thing, because if you don't deal with the cause, then you're just going to get sick again. So what you do is you go straight for that cause. You deal with that first, you tackle it directly, and then after that's done, the symptoms no longer have that much power. They can be annoying, but they're not going to do anything substantial and damaging to you further than they already have. And then the last one, and this is the one that is probably the most kind of heart-rending, and that is the pros and cons of ending a friendship need to be assessed. Whether it's a friendship or in terms of just straightforward friends, where someone's, again, asking you for money or asking you for favours or always insulting you and then trying to leverage you or your insecurities against you to get their way with you. Or whether it's in a relationship where that person is literally just trying to have you as their personal plaything, or whether it's at work where a manager or a co-worker is some way trying to leverage their position over you to maybe make their lives easier, maybe deal with some other stuff that otherwise they could probably deal with without you, but getting you to do it is just easier. You need to tot up the pros and cons of being in that environment. Obviously, the ones that are friendships, the ones that are relationships, they might hurt more, but they're the easier to get out of. If you've got more cons than pros by a long stretch, in regards to putting up with this person's behaviour and the way that they're trying to manipulate you and screw you around, simply put, it's a numbers game. Then you've got your answer. It's not worth it, numerically speaking, on positives to negatives for you to stick around, and so you remove that person from your life. Any other friends that you're worried about losing because you've shrugged that person out of your life, good chances that if they decide to ditch you just because you've moved away from someone who was damaging your life otherwise, they probably weren't the best of friends in the first place. There are still 7 odd billion or so other people that you've not met yet. Go make some new friends. Again, that can have its own issues, own troubles, but simply put, you'll manage. And then the in regards to work, though, it can be tough because then you've got contracts involved, you've got teams involved, you've got having to deal with management, you've got having to tackle other problems, and trying to stick in those environments where you are really not wanted, or where there is someone that is always trying to damage your situation there, it's soul draining. I've been in at least 3 or 4 jobs to one extent or another where there has been that guy, and he's almost always been at the top of the chain. Why? Because he's got nothing else going for him. He's got nothing else at all going for him apart from that job, and so he's been there longer, or he has been there to be the best of a bad bunch, but a promotion needed to happen somewhere because the person who was actually capable before him has gone elsewhere. And so he was selected to take over because he'd been there longer and he was the best of the bad bunch, and so on and so forth. That is the case 2 or 3 times at least in regards to the people that I'm thinking of that I've worked with. And the pros and cons then come down to potentially even whether or not you leave that job. And that can be especially difficult, especially if you've not got much in the way of resources to fall back on and whatever else. That can be very hard. But in regards to those situations, you do actually have another benefit, where with friends and relationships, in terms of romantic ones and so on, you don't have a written rule book. At work, you've got company policies. You've got your in theory, company handbook, that should have all the policies, ups and downs, and other bits and pieces that you need. You can always ask for more, and there is almost always an HR department that will allow for. They can be pains in the arse, but they are usually trying to be your friend. That is their job. They are there to, as much as it is to keep you in line and screw you around and whatever else, they are also there to make sure that their workers are capable of working. So making sure that you take advantage of that part of their purpose, very important for you. But again, it's paying attention to those rules, paying attention to the way that the system works, because chances are, if someone is trying to get their way with you, they've ignored a lot of the system. Either that, or they've only taken notice of the parts that are really going to benefit them, so that they can kind of twist them and use them as additional leverage and weight to get you to move in the direction that they want you to move. Chances are they will have ignored the rest. They will have ignored the laws of the land that you're living in as well, in regards to employment laws and things like data protection, equal opportunities, all that jazz. Go and do some reading. Go and talk to people in things like citizens' advice, and inquire, because that way you can potentially make sure that you have those facts. And again, going back to it, facts are important. And then it's just working out the pros and cons of whether or not it's worth tackling it through those means to continue with your job and do more and do better and whatever else. Which again, if you're already in management, if you're already climbing your way up the chain, if you don't have any other access to things, if you don't have any other plans or ambitions for the future, then fine. If you're happy in that position and the climbing that you're doing as is, chances are it's probably worth fighting for. If, though, you're at the bottom of the ladder, you've been passed over for opportunity again and again and again and again, and you've got nothing else invested there other than the fact that it is the current thing that is paying your bills, simply put, you have options for you. Whether it's leaving, whether it's moving elsewhere, whether it's developing something else, once you are aware of that, you can look at those options. You can make a decision as to whether or not it's worth staying or not worth staying. And then I'm not saying just up and quit your job, but what I am saying is that you can either look for other jobs, you can find other things that you want to invest your time in to grow your collection of skills so that you can move on, or otherwise. You know, it gives you more options. Anyway, this video is now approaching an hour in length, and that's our list of 11 things. So I hope you find those useful, guys, because, as said, these won't always be easy to deal with. They will not always be things that you can master straight away. Some of them will require practice, like standing up for yourself and making sure that your limits are in place. Some of them will require an awful lot of patience, which you might not have with someone who has been a dick to you for a long time. And so, you know, there are all of these different things, these different issues that you're going to run into when tackling these kinds of people, these people that want to manipulate you and get you to do what they want rather than anything else. But these are the ways that I've used in the past. These are the things that stand out to me as some of the best ways to tackle these individuals when they come at you, especially if you can't avoid them. And, you know, I'm hoping that since you guys found the other 2 videos that I've done on this kind of topic useful already, that this one helps you out as well. Again, thank you very much to Holly, who commented to make a suggestion or asked a question about this video. And otherwise, guys, I will see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting or useful, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And we'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.